You've probably noticed that there are more videos coming out than usual, and it's not just for no reason. As the market changes, I'm keeping a close eye on it. I spend a lot of time training and trying to adapt to it since it's unclear when it will change at all. The market is very, very volatile, even at this evening May time. These kinds of movements come out of nowhere. It's unclear where the volume is even coming from during these movements. You look at the candle, it's 3,000. Then you look here, it's 3,000, 5,000. You see, I'll tell you right away. For such time, the standard is 600 to 1,000, maximum up to 1,000K, not 5. Let's take a look for a second. This is the daytime at 1 p.m. Look at the volume. 1,000, 2,002, 2,222. This piece should be right here now. Right here. And this one right here. What? So, trading during the day turns out to be easier than trading in the evening. Do you know why this happens? Because New York comes online in the evening. The US comes online. Do you know what's happening over there right now? They're experiencing, oh man, there's such chaos in the market over there, especially in the stock market, which is just crashing. So trading in New York right now is risky. What do I want to do? I have until the end of the hour 19. I want to look for setups during this hour 19. Setups to some stops, to some areas, and to work on retracement movements. Maybe, if there are good facts, I'll jump in there for the continuation of the movement. But it has to be justified. Not just based on logic. Yeah, I have my logic. And how about me? 4 minutes for an upward movement based on general logic. Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. This, it also works. But we'll try to catch some better points. I don't know what will come of this. Maybe I won't find a single situation during this time. And in the end, it will be for nothing. Then I'll continue the video tomorrow, also for some retracements. I'll try to find a situation and I'll be back. Look at this funny thing I noticed. Control C. Do you know what that is? Control C, right? That's copy, and Control V is paste. Replacing the right button. There, in the line, we're copying something and pasting something. So here, I'm doing Control C. Here I press Control V. Here I press Control V. And here I also press Control V. Well, you got it, right? That I have almost the same ones here. Here, for example, Euro AUD. In this situation, we can assume that the movement will go at least Euro AUD 58%. All right. Goodbye. Euro GBP. Can I take a retracement move? Let's think. There's one stop, and nearby there's a second stop. For now, that's enough. This stop has already worked off a retracement. They somehow went sideways here. At first, they decided to do it this way, and then they decided to give us these kinds of candles. You understand, right? And considering that each candle was getting bigger and bigger, but at the same time, we couldn't break through this stop with that kind of strength, we were given a buyer. I understand you. Right now, the buyers aren't letting us go higher. We're going down again, trying to break through this minimum. It makes sense to take a short position somewhere around this point for 4 minutes. Not down, but up. It's evening time, so we can assume that a buyer might appear from here. If it goes lower, it should break through. Then we have another moment to enter for an upward move or to chase and the safety zone. From below, 48 seconds to go. And right now in this situation, what's happening? In this situation, there are no buyers, just a lot of sellers. I can't open a trade because I have more sellers than buyers in volume. And logically, we understand that we're going to break through the minimum and not bounce away from it. Cluster. 20 seconds. Area of interest. Up top, we need to see what happens at the close. Euro GBP. I hope I'm not sharing all this for nothing. And I see some percentage here. 76. All right, let's go with 76. My trading session before the video was like this. That's how my evening turned out. Tolerable, let's say. Let's take a look. That's it. The candle is closing in 1 second. The money button lights up. A buyer is appearing. Where does the buyer appear? When touching the level, yes. When touching the level. So we're closing the candle right now, just at the buyer. The movement upwards may continue. Overall, there are more sellers. The divergence is also in favor of the sellers. We're closing at the buyer's area of interest. At the top, there's a cluster against the sellers. We're hitting for the sellers. 1-1. The logic is in favor of the sellers. 2-1 in favor of the reds. What else can we stick here? Area due to a draw. Is there anything visible about the liquidity? You can't see a damn thing from it. Everything is concentrated above. So according to the situation, it's 2-2. We can create some kind of advantage, for example, by approaching here. Then we will approach the nearest minimum. I can take an entry on the buyer's side. I will have. Since we're approaching the minimum, I can take an entry for an increase. Right now, I basically have no entry points. I don't know what's going to happen. Based on the facts, it's 50-50. I'm going to look for the situation further. I missed all the pairs. This is already the second round, and there's still no situation. Here I am back on the same Euro GBP. What can I do here? I can wait for the approach. For example, to take a trade when the price approaches something. There was again an attempt for a buyer to appear. Let's go lower. So I'll do that in this situation. I'll put it right here. I'll place a plus. Let me get a notification. If I manage to get in on this pair, I'll open a position here. But overall, there is no situation yet. I'm hitting pause and will be looking for a situation and coming back. Then don't say that I did something, cut or edited it. I warned everyone. Look, the last trade, it worked, but I was a bit late. So what do we see in the end? We see another one. Yes, there are more buyers on this candle. Euro GBP. Other than saying let's pray, there's really nothing more to say. Euro GBP. I will use 2 minutes preparing to enter a buy at 750. So why am I going for a buy now? We're passing the recently made low on good volumes, but there's no reaction. In this candle, I see that there are more buyers than in the previous one. That's good. What's next? We fly past a good minimum from where there was a good upward movement. We demolish it. Its reaction is absent. The buyer in the candle is absent. We're already touching the third fact. Yes, the third fact is the area of the minimum twice, the minimum and the third fact. We're already touching the next area, from where the upward movement started. Also a strong upward movement. It gives us something like this. We're flying even lower. Oh my God, a weak buyer appears down there. It doesn't look like it's very close here. Of course, I would like to add another catch up here, but very close. Because if the buyer is able to do something, he is here, as we are, in principle, now removing this minimum from where this upward movement originated. So we can buy at this price now since there's enough time to give me this profit. If we don't see the buyer appearing during this time, then it will move lower to this minimum. Next time the buyer. Showing ourselves only in this range for 5 seconds, we're standing at the opening point, plus or minus. So, is this good? I understand you. There are some retracement movements happening, and I see that there is resistance. On the other hand, I see the appearance of a buyer against the seller. In this candle, the buyer is showing up, but there's very strong resistance coming from the seller. Most of the volume is growing due to the emergence of... But look, there are fewer sellers now. Euro GBP. I'm going to use this entry again for an upward movement, 750, and here I'll prepare 1750. 5 seconds until the end. We're hovering around the opening point. Well, 2 points. How much did it give? 3 points. It gave me... So the money button lit up and the retracement is happening. Good. Did a retracement happen? It happened. The reasons for the retracement are the removal of the main minimum and the entry into another area. X2 combo. For the retracement movement. Is it there? Yes. The sellers in the candle are down by a millimeter, and there are fewer buyers. I would have given more data volume, like to the buyer, because why in such a candle do the sellers not increase what it was in the previous candle? So there's a loss of strength. If there's a loss of strength, then what kind of calm breakout can we talk about? Not at all. So a retracement is happening, more or less good. There would have been more time. There would be more points. The main thing is that it doesn't go down immediately. All right. In this situation, I caught a retracement, some kind of it. I'm going to look for the situation further. So GBP CAD, I'll go right away and check the percentage. 81. The percentage is still present. What interesting things can we take from here? We can note this nearest stop for the price. We can see that the retracement movement follows logic and occurs from this impulse. From this stop, the middle of the impulse. Plus, the local area is being taken by the seller. We're going higher where the next seller might appear in this area. Theoretically, we can reach it. There is enough strength to reach this area. The area of interest is above. And the strength above doesn't decrease either. We can go higher. We're moving higher, and there's now a minute left until the end. The area of interest is still being filled in. Let us also say that the seller's volume in this candle is smaller. In this one, the seller is even less, and the buyer isn't increasing either. Let's take another 50 seconds. The buyer might increase. Some resistance is appearing. I can already assume that the retracement movement might happen earlier than they reach this area. Could that happen? Maybe. Is it worth taking the risk to enter such a trade? There should be some facts. I'm waiting closer to the close, closer to the candle's close. So here comes the retracement, 20 seconds. there are more sellers, fewer buyers. Look, the retracement has already happened and I missed it. First of all, it didn't happen from the area where my entry point should be. So the situation in essence is no longer I'm going to keep going in. I'm not planning to stop here. Therefore, even further from GBP, CF. The approach to the stop is also far away. So we will analyze it. The last piece of the trend, which is for the buyer, I note, are this stop. There was a touch. There was an attempt by the seller to do something. They bought it out. Again, we come to this area of the seller. More, the buyer, less in the cluster. The seller had a zone of interest. The body was closed higher. The buyer won. The body was closed. On whom the body was closed? The body was closed. It's strange. Why is it like this? Let me think. I know what I did. I'm a bit tired of this already. So I'll turn on the outline, Fauwea, for example. I did it like this. Let's try it out. So, what does this give me now? Now I can see the candle bodies where they don't close and where my area of interest is, which is constant. Don't use that dotted line here. So, let's think about this situation and what happened here. We closed the area of interest above, and the body of the candle closed in favor of the buyer. After that, we saw a minimal continuation of the movement upwards, and the seller appears. Not much, but the retracement has already happened. It happened. I can't get promoted. The buyer isn't getting any stronger. It's not great for an entry point. It's not my situation. Well, guys, let this be the kind of video for today. I'm looking further. So, what about USD? Can we try something in our favor on AUD USD? Let's take a look at this currency. Let's mark it. This interval. We can see that a minimum was made. The attempt to update the minimum didn't happen. The attempt to break this minimum also didn't happen. But we didn't go higher. Now we're going back again, trying to take out all three of these minimums, I guess. Overall, the buyer was also able to update their maximum, but we all understand perfectly well that there is a sideways movement here. Right now, my main task is to understand if a buyer will emerge from here. To do that, we need to find that buyer or see the weakness of the seller. We're looking at a good solid candle, and there's absolutely no buyer. What is this? Where are we flying to? So, we're almost at the minimum. I would even say we're breaking this minimum with a solid candle, but there's no buyer. Where's the next buyer? Maybe he could be here. So we might see a break. There's a lack of buyers. So I can enter on a pullback and look at the movement in the area of interest, check the middle, and there's also volume coming in. They might go lower. No, I can't. The volumes are empty. We might just fly through. So it looks like there's a good opportunity to enter downwards here. A minute left. This is very important. In a minute, it can go a little lower since we have a candle with high volume. It can easily take off. So the nearest place where a buyer might appear will be here, right here. Can I enter on a pullback? Of course, there's no way I can enter. What can I do? I can exit, for example, down to this candle's minimum. We're just pouring in well. All right, let's go short on out USD. Let's give it a try. Same 50. I'll get it ready. 2 minutes. To where? Down to this minimum. Why might it be more interesting to me? The minimum of this big candle, because this candle was made on high volume. So at this price, there was a lot of buying, and the interest tells us that. I can assume that when the price approaches this index, again, there might be some pullback movement. And my main task, since I'm going short, is to take it down to the point where something might happen. This is the kind of entry based on that logic. The candle is abnormal. It doesn't react to the breaking of the minimum. There are practically no buyers in the cluster. We're also pouring in volumes here to go down. So basically everything is going in favor of the seller. We'll see what comes of this. So 1 second. Retracement. Divergence. Everything is in favor of the seller. Let's assume we had a loss. Well, I didn't get lucky with the retracement, so I ended up with a loss. That's it, 0, 0. Here, there was no retracement, and we'll open for a larger amount here. 1750 will come in. So what is this retracement? Well, this is just a lucky break. How can this even be a retracement? Like, is that possible? I'm going to assume that I poorly analyzed a bad entry point, so I took it and closed my trade at a loss. That's why I'm going to open here for a full amount, as if it's like that. Why am I going in again with a short add-on? Well, we have a buyer for the cluster. It's not visible. In terms of volume, most of the volume is in favor of the seller. The appearance of some very weak buyer, where could a buyer even come from? That's a big Question mark. Where might a buyer appear? I've already explained it, noted it. Why should I go for a buy? Again, Ayush question mark. I should have taken a profit by this point. This can be anticipated. Was it? Less than 2 minutes. Of course, it could have been. Here on this candle, what else could happen next? I see that right now, that's how it is for this market. It's all real. Everything is possible. What should I do now? Should I take 1 minute? Switching to 1 minute? It's quite possible. We need to test it. By the way, 1 minute might be enough here with such movements since they happen very sharply. Plus, I've handled the situation. Now I'm going to look for more. By the way, there's absolutely no reaction happening here. Where might a buyer appear? Next. At this stop. What about this candle? Lack of a buyer. What about the cluster? So far, there's a lack of a buyer. The candle was already made on a small volume, but we came out as winners from the sideways market. The next buyer might appear in this area. 2 minutes to go. Something is growing for now. But you see, there are fewer sellers, so ideally we need to wait closer to the closing. Only then make the entry point. For now, I'll keep looking for the situation. I'm going to test everything right now, guys. Even down to 1 minute, because the market is changing. We need to do something about this. Euro, Shashef. There's a percentage, very large for this time. What do we see here? This minimum was taken out by this candle. They bought it back well. We didn't go up, we went down to get past this minimum. There's another stop below. Makes sense? Makes sense. Can we pull back up from here? Of course we can. Look, the volumes were increasing for the buyer. There were 2 big candles. But from this moment on, we're no longer prioritizing the buyer, but the seller. We're looking for weakness from the seller. So far, there's no weakness in the cluster. Here comes the buyer. Great. The appearance of the buyer happens a little earlier. But after taking out this minimum, the small volume is increasing. And the buyer is again absent. We can go lower. Look. And here the volume is pouring in. We can go lower if we get past this stop. Where's the next one? Who knows where the next one is? Here will be the next stops. With some volume, this can be secured. If there's weakness, well, how can I look? There it is, just like that. That's it. That's it. Boom. There's just no buyer at all. And there's no divergence in the cluster. The loss of strength isn't happening. This is a downward movement. But where down? It's a long way to go. I can't see that entry. Euro dollar. I like it. There are a lot of buybacks from the buyer where there were many attempts to push the seller down. Everywhere they were buying up its movement. And in the end, we broke out, went up and made a maximum. Now we're going to approach this large accumulation for the first time. The reaction can happen from here already, but we see it because there's volume present. This volume can still be secured with stops. They're here. But from this stop, a retracement movement was made. 2 candles are weak. Here's the sideways movement. I like this one more. Yeah, I would take a long position from this little sideways area. Let's see if we can get an entry up to this zone. There was a good full-bodied candle. Now there's a small candle. Where the strength that was in this candle is also showing up on the seller. There was no loss of strength at the bottom, meaning after this candle, we see a good strong candle with volume on the seller. There's a distance to the nearest place where a buyer might appear according to the cluster of lost strength. Absolutely nothing at the bottom, meaning all the facts indicate the continuation of the movement. It has already happened. It has already played out. There are 3 minutes left until the end of the candle. That's a lot. I won't go short to this area. By the way, buyers are already starting to appear, but that's because we've come into this volume to become the second flow of volume. Perhaps this situation isn't for me just yet as we approach this moment and the reins are tightening. We had the retracement movement around the first candle, which rose due to the appearance of a seller with volume, is basically secured. But there's something here. Well, the problem is that from this moment, there was only 1 candle until the next candle. So let's keep an eye on the buyer. If there's a loss of strength from the buyer here at the cluster, the strength of the movement is still higher with the volume of movement. All right, we're crawling up to the area. The candle is getting smaller. Look, what a small candle and how much time has already passed. There are more sellers. That's a good sign. Resistance is still present at the top. I'm going to consider a short entry on USD CAD. USD CAD. Yeah, damn it. Well, come on. What else can we do? There's nothing left to do. All right, USD CAD short entry. Well, 44 seconds. Let's wait a bit on USD CAD. Looks like it's flying down. Wow, a money button. At 6. So 2 seconds to go plus. This is what a pullback looks like on the money button. All right, let's return the amount. Let's try to look for another situation. So USD TCF, right into the next situation. The situation, by the way, is quite interesting for a pullback movement. Filmed. This maximum, the main maximum, remains, which hasn't been recorded. After that, we saw good pullback movement. We're not letting it go down, we're going up again. To update this maximum, we need to see if it makes sense to go higher. It's hard to say on such a time frame. Let's see, a higher time frame to understand the levels. Well, it's going to be really hard to understand anything based on the levels. There was a divergence here. I can assume that the next normal stop where a seller might appear will be right here. So on the higher time frame, we see that there was a buyback. Good buyers didn't go down, they went up. So logically, overall, the priority is with the buyer. All right, okay. The buyer doesn't reach this area. My hands are itching to open a strong position for 4 minutes. I won't do it that way. If we see that there are fewer buyers and fewer sellers here, then that's not in favor of the buyer. And a pullback is already happening without reaching the area. The situation is lost. Yeah, this is the perfect situation where you're just sitting and waiting for the entry points. So shall we start over? But I have out USD COP marked. I have already worked it out. Yes, somewhere out USD. The downside has been worked out. Let's see what's happening now. There's a stop where a buyer might appear and a buyer has shown up, previously making a pullback movement due to divergence. But we don't see them going up. We're seeing movement down again. Yeah, a red candle. If there was a strong buyer, we would be seeing a green candle right now, but they're buying back again. So logically, if the sellers show strength now, we have an open distance to the next stop. So it could be a good entry for a downside. But no, look, the money button is playing out again. Not mine, even further. So Euro GBP, what can we do here? In my opinion, it's already been worked out. The nearest place where a buyer might appear. This stop has already been worked out twice. Right now, we could intentionally go for a new minimum based on the cluster. For now, we're going lower. There's a loss of strength down below. There's no buyer anymore and fewer sellers, so it's roughly the same. The candle is still pretty much equal. Logically, we're heading towards a new minimum. I could have tried to take an entry up to this stop, up to this minimum. Now I'm going to see what percentage I'll take. I have some decision to make. There is a percentage. It would be interesting to look at this for 30 seconds to a minute. Let's see. So far, there's no loss of strength. Again, the nodes are becoming fewer. There's a pullback from the seller based on this volume. Look at the money button, but we're closing below, which means there's a contradiction in the divergence of movement higher area of interest. Here we close the body below for the seller. Divergence is in favor of the buyer. Volume not in favor of the seller, as there are fewer sellers. This is bad for further movement down, meaning there's divergence in favor of the buyer. Well, I can't make a deal like that because the divergence, even though it looks really great on the 7, is not enough. I'll try to look further. Well, I've already missed these pairs very, very many times. It's pretty much standing still everywhere. And I need to wrap up with the real market. So I'm going to look for the last trade on OTC. So an interesting moment on OTC. We see we're about to approach a very good maximum. And I'm going to catch an entry here for a downward move. Let's try 1 minute. So I'll mark this. It was all clearer this way. I'll mark the main maximum, and I made a little mistake by not checking. If something is higher, very far up, then there's a pullback in the movement. It makes sense to go back to M5. I see that I'm currently updating this maximum, and we'll be watching for the next one. And the pullback movement is quite far away. There should definitely be some kind of correction happening, no matter what. Well, 1 minute might let me down. Damn, I totally messed up 1 minute on OTC. Wow, life definitely didn't prepare me for this. So 750. We're using 2 minutes in this situation for a downward move for a couple of seconds, and we can already be a solid candle. So I think that with this pullback movement, which makes sense logically, I will finish. They broke the maximum. And not just one, but they broke through 2 maximums right away. We got a pullback movement. The candle formation is a bit weak. That was noticeable, but I managed to catch it. Yeah. In the end, I don't even remember where I finished and where I started. Probably on Euro GBP. Yes, I started. In the end, it turns out like this for me. 1, 2, 3, 4 wins. There was a lot of chatter. I was trying to find a more or less decent, reasonable entry point and work it out. So I'm going to wrap up this video. If you found it interesting, give it a like, leave feedback, and subscribe to the channel. And now, goodbye.